to utilize podcasts as your English learning source, but now what I'm gonna tell you is beneficial for you to improve your speaking skills. That is, hi everyone, how are you? Well, hope that you all are well, and today we are going to discuss something interesting that is going to upgrade your listening skills, your speaking skills, and your vocabulary too. So, today we are going to learn how we can learn and speak English using podcasts. Well, podcasts, they are in the trend. We all are familiar with the podcast. People used to do it through radio shows. So, podcast started with the audio format, and through all the revolution, now we have video format podcasts too. Isn't that great? So podcasts, they are a great way of gaining knowledge, and today we are going to learn how we can use these podcasts to level up our English speaking skills and also our vocabulary. It is a great source of English. So let's begin this 5-step procedure, or maybe the 5 tips that I'm gonna give on how to use podcasts for leveling up your speaking skills in English. Now, the first step is that you have to select a podcast, which is quite obvious. Now, majority of people face this problem that what kind of podcast should they select? The thing is that the podcast need to be in English. So that is mandatory. Now you can choose any podcast according to your interest. It can be either learning based, that is English learning based, a podcast that is completely dedicated to your speaking skills. Otherwise, you can choose a podcast on a topic that is of your interest, for example, on finance, on travel, on health, lifestyle, whatever you like. So, you can either choose a podcast of English learning or you can choose a podcast according to your interest. The main thing is that it needs to be in English. So if you are looking for upgrading your English, I suggest you go and listen to some kind of podcasts that are actually dedicated to English learning. So I suggest that if you really want to utilize it for the maximum potential, then definitely choose an English learning podcast. Now what you have to do is you try listening to the podcast, right? You might not be able to understand it because it's English. If you are taking a podcast that's a native language, maybe for example you took this particular topic, lifestyle, and you took it of a native speaker, then what will happen is you might not understand it at first go, but it's okay. Try to understand, replay and listen again, and try to understand whatever the speaker is saying, and do not just leave it like that. And if you're not able to understand, it's okay, skip it and move forward with the rest of the podcast. So try listening to it at least twice, and listen to it completely, like with your full attention. That's what you have to do. Now the step number 2, podcasts, they come with a transcript. So there is often a written transcript. All the podcasts come with transcript if they are in the audio format. This transcript, that is the written form of script, whatever the speaker is saying. So whatever speaker is saying, that is actually written exactly like that in a PDF form. Download the transcript and read it along as you listen. Now YouTube also has this new feature called podcasts, and what you can do with this feature I'm going to tell you at the end of the video, so don't worry. Now come back to this. Now listen to the audio and read the transcript as you go. What will happen is you are listening and you are reading. So it's a two-way thing. You are doing two things at the same time. You are using two of the English language skills, and that is a great way to learn any language, because when you listen and when you read, you're able to understand how pronunciation is working, how the rhythm is working, where is the stress. Even if you're not paying attention, in your subconscious mind, it is getting registered. So you are picking it up subconsciously without any effort. Number 3 is you get to learn new vocabulary. Now, how you can do that? So when you listen to a podcast, you get to learn a lot of vocabulary. How? See, when you're listening, look for the words that you don't know. Pick up the new words. if you find a new word, just note it down, write it down somewhere. Keep your vocabulary diary, as I suggest, handy. You will get to learn a lot of vocabulary. Another awesome thing is that you get to learn vocabulary related to a particular topic. For example, today I am listening to a podcast related to traveling. So when I'm listening to a podcast related to traveling, what I get is I get to hear a lot of vocabulary related to travel. In similar way, if you want to listen to something related to finance, you can listen to that and pick up finance related vocabulary, health related vocabulary, culture related vocabulary, lifestyle related vocabulary, fashion related vocabulary, education related vocabulary, whatever you want to. And then again, vocabulary in general if you're listening to some kind of English learning podcast. So when you're learning to an English learning podcast, in that also you will find new vocabulary. So whenever you're listening to a podcast, keep your mind open and look for new words, search for new words. It is a fun way and a very effective way to upgrade your vocabulary. Fourth thing that I want to say is, should you multitask while listening to a podcast or not? So if you're really serious about learning English language, I suggest that you don't multitask. Do not listen to a podcast just like that while you're traveling or doing something else, maybe doing your household chores and all these things. If you're really serious about it, serious about learning English, I suggest that you take 10 minutes out, because podcasts are somewhere from 6 minutes to 15 minutes. So search a podcast according to your comfort zone. A 10 to 15 minute podcast is, I think that's the awesome. But there is a cheat code that if you really don't have time, it's okay. It's okay, break the rules. Utilize your time that is going in mundane day-to-day actions. What you can do is play the podcast, listen to it while you do all the cleaning around your room. Maybe if you want to just rearrange your almirah, do that, listen to the podcast, because you don't have time. In case you don't have time, then you can definitely multitask. So that is the beauty of podcasts, that we can listen to them while doing other things. The point number 5 is the video format podcasts. Yes, these days video format podcasts are actually trending, and even YouTube has launched this new feature of podcast. So if you're not aware about it, be aware that YouTube has launched podcast, and I think YouTube is going to utilize this feature to reach a lot of people for subjects that are really helpful, to spread knowledge and words of wisdom to people across the nation. And YouTube, I think, is going to do that through its podcast feature, and that is a great initiative taken by YouTube, I think. So my podcast has also been released, and you can find it on my channel right beside the live section and before the playlist. So it's between live and playlist option. So do check out my podcast on the English speaking skills and communication skills. So if you want to improve your English speaking skills and communication skills, also check out my podcast on YouTube. Now, when you're watching a video format of podcast, you don't have a transcript. You might have, might not have. But having a transcript is not even an issue, because you can always switch on the subtitles. That is the beauty of a video. You have subtitles available. So as you're watching the video, the subtitles will come rolling on the screen. Just simply switch on subtitles if you're having difficulty listening to the podcast, or you want to do two skill things together that I suggested in step 2 for the audio podcasts. So here in the video podcasts, you can just switch on the subtitles and read the subtitles as you listen to the podcast. You must think that that's it, but no, that's not it. There is a very huge thing you have to do after all these things, right? These were some 5 points, 5 steps, whatever you'd like to call them, in order to utilize podcasts as your English learning source. But now what I'm gonna tell you is beneficial for you to improve your speaking skills. That is, You need to tell 3 things that you learned from the podcast in your own words. Just 3 things. Speak them out loud. That today, from this particular podcast, I got to know this, and this. That is your English speaking practice. Now you have done your listening practice, reading practice, and your speaking practice. That's also done. It is also covered, and isn't it awesome? So, whenever you listen to a podcast, just talk about it. Whatever you feel like, whatever you feel after watching the podcast, you can speak about anything. You liked it. What did you like in the podcast? Why would you recommend it to somebody else? So, these are the things that you can talk about. So, this is how you can use a podcast to learn English. Do check out my podcast on my channel. And this is it for today. Use podcast to learn English. That's it. And keep on learning, keep on smiling, and like the video, share the video, and subscribe the channel if you're new here. I'm Shivangi. I'm going to meet you next time with a new video and a new topic. Till then, take care. Keep learning English. Keep doing your speaking practice. And I'm gonna see you next time. Bye.